everybody, and welcome to another Adobe Live with me and Tim. Tim, it's so good to be with you for my first stream back for 2022. How are you doing?
Welcome back. Happy New Year, Maddy. Haven't seen you in ages.
I know. It's been, do you know what? I've been looking forward to this. And do you know, I love it already that the chat is firing up. Everybody's in talking about sunshine. And it just feels like we're all back together again. So yeah, really nice to see everybody. We've got a really good session today. Tim is, you're on, and we're not only talking blend modes, but I think people should be ready to have their minds blown with what we're covering today, right, Tim? Well, I've got my pad and pen ready. I always, honestly, all these moments of wisdom, I always have to write all of these down. So what we cover, what are you going to cover?
But first of all, before we start, Maddy, where can people watch this stream? I forgot.
Oh, well, of course. Sorry, everybody. So we're on Behance, as you know. So if you want to chat with us today, then come and chat. Behance/live, and come and chat. Ask us questions. Ask Tim any questions that you like. And if you're watching on YouTube, of course, we're chatting on Behance. So come over. And the Discord channel is still running, right, Tim?
Yeah, but right now we can plug that later, because I will have some assets and things I'm going to share with you.
Oh, good. Oh, cool.
Just in case you forget something today, I will have some links and assets for you. So I will post them after the stream to the UK Discord, which the link for that you will find below the stream. So about there.
Nice one, Tim.
Anyway, who's joining us today?
Well, I can see Oliver's in the chat today. He's asking about my jumper. We're protecting everyone's eyes from the bright colours that I like to share, as you all know. Stefan's here as well. Jackie, great to see you back in the chat. Sandrine as well. Hey, everybody. It's Stephen and Laura as well. So lots of people in the chat. It's really great to see everybody. And our very own Julia as well. Hey, Julia.
All right. Well, I just happened to have done the other stream, the German one, with Julia on the exact same topic. So if you're joining us from Germany, hallo.
Nice.
Guten Tag.
So good. Back-to-back stream.
Right. So let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. Because, yes, as Maddy said, today is going to be all about blending modes or blend modes. Both are correct. And in fact, actually, even the Photoshop manual mentions both. So if you're saying blend modes, if you're saying blending modes, both are absolutely correct. And yeah, I'm going to probably mention both of them today. Just so you know, it means the exact same thing. Right. So, Maddy, where can we find us some blend modes? Do you know?
Photoshop, Tim.
Photoshop, yeah, that's great. Yes. So let's hop on over to Photoshop. You should see there we go. And here we are. We have our blend modes. I will just open a brand new document. Never seen by humans before. There we are. And I will remove the lock. And now, as you all know, here are your blending modes. Click on them, and I get a whole host of different modes. I think about 28, Don't correct me on that.
Wow.
And what I want to do today with this stream is, usually the way people go through those blending modes is just by checking maybe, no. You just always go through the entire list from top to bottom and see which one works, don't you?
And Tim, when would you use a blending mode? So for somebody that's brand new to our stream today, because I can see some new names in the chat, when would you use one? What kind of project would you be working on where you would require blend modes?
That's a good question. So for that, we just need to make sure we know the terminology, because blending modes or blend modes always, apart from a few exceptions, require two layers. One is called the base layer, and then we have our blend layer. They usually sit on top of each other, the blend layer at the top, the base layer at the bottom, and together they will have a resulting color that will be blended together. So let's just, instead of talking about it, let's just do it. Right, let's get a nice color. How about, I don't know, a nice blue.
The brighter the better, I say, Tim.
There we go.
And Sandrine asks the question, are all blending modes the same across all Adobe products? Or is it different in Photoshop?
In some apps, there are fewer blending modes, or fewer blending modes. In others, there are more, but multiply means the same across all the different apps. So if you have the same blend mode, means the same thing, but different apps have different blend modes. So in some apps you will find something which you can't find. Photoshop XD, for example, has all the blend modes of Photoshop, but they are the same operations, as Tony says. All right.
Hey, Tony, by the way.
Hi.
To have you here with us.
Oh God, the pressure's on. Tony's watching. Anyway, now I just painted 2 colors, right? And I want to blend them together. So as normal, I would usually just go through and see like, oh, no, not really. And see if one of them matches what I'm expecting. Of course, now we don't really have an expectation, so I'm just looking through. But that's usually how people work. They just look through, see what works, what doesn't, see what I like, see what I don't, and perhaps this one is the right one. And then, yes, screen, that's great, but you don't really know why you picked screen. And we kind of want to go a bit deeper into that and see why we want to pick screen or why we want to pick the other one. So let's just remove that and let's have a look at the list of blending modes. They are grouped, which we can see, right? There's some lines in between, we have some groups, and they are also in a very specific order. They are certainly not random. So why don't we start with the grouping part? As we can see, we have like a group over here, one there, and here. Those groups, there's a purpose behind them. The purpose is, let me show you, that one, categories. The first group, we will ignore this one at the top. I will tell you why in a moment. The first one is all about darkening. That's why it says darken. That's why I added like this ink drop. It's supposed to represent darkening. The next group is all about making things brighter. That's why I have the sun. Could have also added a photo of Maddy, you know. After that, we have our contrast blending modes. They are all about contrast and modifying that contrast in a way and shape we will find out in a moment. And then we have our inversion blending modes. They are about calculations. They will invert something. And finally, we have our component blend modes. They will split our image, or they will allow us to modify certain components of the image. Which exact components we'll find out in a moment, like I said.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so that's essentially, if you remember nothing else from this stream, do remember this, because if you always know that, this group is all about lightning, then you just have to, if you are still scrolling through blend modes, you just have to scroll through this one if you want to make something brighter. Or if you want to make something darker, then you know, it has to be somewhere in here. So let's just do an example. Let's make an example. Let's see what we can do with those first blend modes. And I would like to start with perhaps like a really famous or really often used task, which you have to do, is you have an image. Let's just pick this one. And I would like to add some smoke or some fog to the image, right? So immediately we know why we need blend modes, because if I were just to reduce the opacity, well, yeah, that kind of works. But first of all, it's way too dark here. The light suddenly becomes dark gray. No, that's not really great. And also the fog doesn't really look realistic. So why don't we try out our first blend mode? Now, before we just randomly scroll through the list, let's see which one should be the category which we use. So Maddy, what could be possibly the category which we want to do? We want to get rid of the dark parts and we want to have the light parts.
Well, I would go with the darken option so that you can color over bits. Is that right? Well, that would mean that we make things darker. If that is the effect, if we want to say, let's say we want to have some ink effects, then yes, darken could be in fact the right choice. Great for ink, you know, but I actually want to lighten something. So we should check out the brighter category, which is the second one.
And in that case, people may use the most famous blend modes, which is screen, right? It gets rid of the dark parts, it keeps the lighter ones, and so far not too bad. But today's stream is also supposed to encourage you to venture out of those comfort zones, because screen and multiply, those are kind of the world stars. Those are the Tony and Maddys of the blend modes. Everyone knows them, everyone likes them, and they're so useful. However, there are also some other ones, like some Tims and some Emmas. They love cycling. So instead of screen, why don't we try out some of the other blend modes in the lighting category? So
how about overlay? This is Tony's suggestion in the chat.
Overlay could be a good idea, but that would also mean that we add contrast and look at the dark parts, not really what we want.
Too dark, yeah.
So instead, I found out by just having a look, because we don't know yet what all these blend modes do, that Lighten just happens to be the one I want. You know, the fog, if we look at the original image, you can't really see the black background through it. So it should be also opaque in our final image. Whereas screen, which everyone would use, still is very transparent. You can clearly see through that. And that's not what we want. So why don't we try Lighten? Now, of course, people will point out like, hey, that color, that doesn't match with the background of the image. So we can, of course, always go ahead and go into the, color balance. There we are. We can go into the highlights, add a bit of yellow, take out some green, a bit more red,
nice.
Midtones. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the blend modes. This is just me playing around with the colors for a bit.
Yeah. Well, Laura had a good comment, actually. She said, lighten with lower opacity.
Yeah, we can also do that.
Nice option. But that's good. I like how you've changed the color of the smoke or the fog.
Before?
That works. It's a good image.
And now we instantly have added our own fog to the image. And we can still preserve those opaque parts. And also, have a look here. You can see there's really some dark parts of the smoke, which I like. Instead of, if we were to use screen, we would also, these would almost disappear and we just have lighter colors. So, much better in my opinion. All right. Okay, so this is the Lighten mode. We can see some interesting effects. How about we try some of the other blend modes in that same category? Let's say we want to add a lens flare, because everyone likes lens flares, and frankly, this one isn't bright enough. It needs to make it pop.
Make it brighter. Make it pop, Tim.
Make it pop. So I downloaded this lens flare from a website called Texture Labs. Really great for lens flares and textures. And we can, if we reduce opacity, we can scale it down. We can position it. Like that, perhaps. Yeah.
How would you cut that out from that image? Would you do select object and remove all of the background from it? I mean, how are you going to get rid of the rest of that box around it?
Great question, Maddy. How are we going to get rid of the black in the background?
Well, I would do select object tool, and hopefully it would automatically cut it for me.
The clue is in the title of the stream, Maddy. We're going to use a blend mode. That's right. So,
well, there you go.
Lucky for us, the background is black, because the creator of this image knew what we wanted to do with that. So we, once again, can have a look at the Lighten category and just have a scroll through the different versions. And maybe we will pick screen, as always. However, again, I would like to point out a different blending mode, which you should definitely try out. In this case, it's Color Dodge and Color Dodge Add.
Like it.
Because these ones, if we just pick the more extreme one, or let's keep it this one, they actually behave very differently, and they will interact with the colors behind. So this is screen, this is linear dodge. You can see how much more extreme it is, right? And even better, it will even like mess with the highlights in the background. You can almost see like the highlights are sort of moving around. You can See that, like the very bright
Very
parts.
cool.
Now the
Yeah.
issue is, this is a very nice lens flare. However, it's way too bright. Like obviously way too bright. This is pure white, even too much for me. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? One might think, like, okay, just reduce the opacity, right? Yeah,
Still bright.
but no,
Very-
not really. I mean, it's darker, but now we can still clearly see that it's just overly saturated, like overly bright. But now it's just gray.
Yeah.
Well, that's not right. That's not how a lens flare works. So instead of opacity, let's try modifying the fill, which is a slider right below opacity. There we go. That is fill. And let's reduce that. And immediately you will see, as soon as I manage to do it, there we are. The lens flare actually shrinks and grows depending on how much I adjust
Nice.
this. There you go.
I think the carrier in the chat was pointing towards this actually as you did it by Phil. Nice one.
Right.
Very good.
So what's happening here? Why is fill behaving differently from opacity? Well, it turns out there are actually 8 blend modes which behave differently if you change fill versus opacity. And these are the ones. Those are the 8, or as Jesus Ramirez often calls them, the special 8 blend modes: color burn, color dodge, vivid light, hard mix, and difference. Those behave differently if you modify fill versus opacity. And we actually find that out with hard mix later on during the stream. All
Nice
right.
one, Tim. It looks really good with that flare. I like that. Nice effect on that image.
Now the advantage of having those different blend modes, if we get rid of that again, and perhaps we want to add some color, some splashes of color to the image. I have also prepared this image here. You can see just some random colors and shapes. And perhaps we just want to stick that on the wall like this. Because what I want to do is I want to add a splash of color to the wall like this. There we go. Very quickly, of course. And now, let's pick a blend mode again. We know the category, so not lighten. Could be screen, but screen makes this the wall on the right way too bright. So why don't we try out one of these? Well, color dodge, I think that's the one. And again, way too intense. So let's reduce fill and watch what happens. There we go.
Oh, nice.
It actually looks like the light. Of course, I will keep it way too intense so you can see what's going on, but in reality, it would actually go down. Perhaps even down to here.
And would you use this same technique to color? Let's say, for example, a lady had a dress on in a street, and if you were to make the picture black and white but make the dress pop, would you use the blend mode to do that, or would you do something?
Yes, but not one of these. And we'll go there in a moment.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
No worries.
So I've added some color, and if we were to compare with the classic one, the screen blending mode, we will see immediately that doesn't look right, does it? But this one is actually much more natural. And if we want to, we can even just take a paintbrush. I'm going to rasterize that layer. And we could just paint some nice, how about, yeah, some blue. Why not? And immediately the light turns blue. And we can, if we make it brighter than blue, we add more brightness. If that's too bright, we can always darken it down.
Oh, very cool.
And we can have real good fun with that and add as much or as little color as we want. And even to the ground, if we want to, like, ooh, yes, some blue over here or some magenta, because the light should illuminate that. We can make that a bit flatter so it actually looks like it's on the ground. There we are. And
Love the attention to detail with that. You're right, because there would be a reflection. It's very good. It's looking great.
I can also, of course, take just another instance of that image and just lay it on the floor like this. And that would probably give us a very similar result. So again, going to color dodge. And then we can erase the old one. And immediately we have a very similar effect. So if we want to paint with light, give color dodge or even linear dodge for a less dramatic effect a try. Right. Okay. So that hopefully should give you an idea why you shouldn't always pick screen. Screen is great, but not for every occasion. Any questions so far?
Not just people really commenting on how great that image was. The colors are great. Right. A little bit of commentary about the type of the image. It looked, there were comments about vampires and the type of scene creating. No, really good. Laura says very informative. Thanks.
You're welcome. Very good. Okay, so now let's go to the next category. We had a look at Lighten, and we were able to see what some of these modes do. Or actually, you know what? Let's have one final example to really show you why those blending modes are so great. So I'm just going to open a new image. Let's make that a bit bigger because I want to add an image from my library, which is over here. Come on, Photoshop.
I didn't know you could do so much with blend modes. Like I've obviously been going, when you learn something and you just know that one way, and so you might be going the long way around to do that one simple task, and blend modes could actually do it faster. So, yeah.
All right, I'm looking for an image. Oh, there we are. Okay, found it.
Oh, nice image.
Let's make that a bit bigger, and let's use C for the crop tool just to...
Did you take that, Tim?
No, it's Adobe stock.
Oh, cool.
All Adobe. Oh, hang on. There we are. Okay. As you can see, here is the ID for Adobe stock even. There we are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I want to add a sun to this image. Like nice sun because, why not? So let me create a new layer. Let's take a brush, make that nice and round like this. There we go. How about, sun, should be yellow, I think. How about this and there?
Right. Yeah, that needs a bit of work, Tim.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Right, okay. Obviously, that doesn't work, does it?
No.
Okay. So, what have we learned? Right. Let's have a look at the Lighten blending modes, indeed. And we learned, all right, we shouldn't try screen because that's boring. And it also almost disappears, by the way. Let's try color dodge or hang on a minute. That doesn't really work, does it? Where is that nice and warm glow I was talking about? I mean, it's sort of there, but not really. What went wrong? Okay.
See, this is one of the first things that Tony taught me, and it was by gradients, not by blend modes. And I would drag the gradient down over like a lighter sky. So, yes, I'm learning a new way here, Tim.
So something isn't quite right. I mean, it sort of glows, but it doesn't really. So what did we do wrong? Well, let's have a look at the actual layer which we have. So we can see there's our yellow and there's our transparency. It should work, but it doesn't. Why? Let's get a brush and sample the color. And you should have a look up here in that part. If I sample here, it's yellow. If I sample here, it's still yellow. If I sample over here, it's still yellow. So the color doesn't change. Now, why is that an issue? The transparency certainly changes, becomes more transparent, but the color doesn't. It still is this yellow. To illustrate the difference, let me create a new one. And let's fill that with black. And let's do that again. There we are. Right? And now let's have a look at the colors. Let's sample that. It's yellow. Have a look up here. But if I go outside, watch this. It actually becomes darker.
Yeah.
So it's not just yellow. And this is the important part for this blending mode. This blending mode actually cares about the color and not just the transparency. So if I set it to color dodge with this one, we actually do see, like, look at the difference before and after. We actually see that it's, oh, I missed that part up here, that it's really glowing. And as always, we can, remember, like, reduce fill opacity, and there we go. Now we could add our sun, right? So before, no transparent background, no glow. After, no black background. After, with a black background, we actually get this. Now, if we don't want this, if we don't want to add a black background to the image, because maybe we don't, maybe we want to preserve editability, that's just fine. Just go to the blending options and check this exact checkbox. Transparency, shapes, layer. Or uncheck it rather. And there we go. Now we have the exact same effect. But we didn't have to add a black background. Slight difference, same workflow. And now we can work with it just like normal. And if we want to reduce intensity, we can either get rid of the fill, like this, or we can just make the layer darker. So levels, or brighter. There we are. And this also works. There we go. And now we have a nice sun, perhaps even behind the clouds, who knows, or just shining through, or animated, like, lovely. Or we can highlight some of the foreground. Super nice. All right.
Yeah.
And this also works if you want to add some shadows. So just as a link, instead of saying multiply, you can try out the color burn and reduce fill. And that will produce much more natural colors, which actually observe the background color of the base layer, which in this case is a nice green or nice sky. Now, if we know how those lighten layers behave, we can actually deduce how all the other ones behave in the darken and in the contrast category. Because it turns out this list of blend modes is not just in any random order. There's a reason behind every placement. So, have you ever noticed the first entry in the darken category and the lighten category? It says darken, lighten.
Yeah.
Multiply, screen. Color burn, color dodge. Linear burn, linear dodge. Darker color, lighter color. They are somehow in the same order, and they are always opposites to each other. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So the first one is the opposite of the first one here. The second one is the opposite of the second here, and so on. So it turns out they are actually opposites, or they do opposite things. One of them will lighten, the other one will darken. So if we draw some connections, like this, you can see darken, lighten, multiply, screen, color burn, color dodge, linear burn, linear dodge, darker color, lighter color. They're connected. What many people don't know is that this connection also goes out to this group. They are all linked. So, if we know how multiply and screen behaves, we can draw our conclusions about these ones. And that's actually linked to the Photoshop manual. And I promise this will be the only time I will show you the Photoshop manual. Blending modes, there we are. We can have a look. Overlay multiplies or screens the color. Soft light darkens or lightens the color. Hard lights multiplies or screens the color depending on the blend color, and so on. Vivid light burns and dodges. Linear light burns and dodges. So those are the connections. What does that mean for us? Well, let's have a look at perhaps, I don't know, the contrast blending modes. We want to add or remove some contrast to the images. Let's do it. I will create a new layer, and Maddy has left us. Well, that's great. Maddy, can you hear me? No? Okay. Well, until Maddy comes back, I will just explain you a couple of things about the contrast blending modes. And hopefully she will be back in a moment. I was wondering if she was frozen. Oh dear. Contrast. Let's add a new layer. just fill that with gray. No, allow gray. There we go. And let's set it to one of the contrast modes. And you will immediately see, well, nothing changed. That's because every blend mode has a neutral color. For the darken modes, it's white, so white will not change anything. For the lighten modes, it's black, so black will not change anything. And for the contrast modes, it's gray. 50% gray, in fact. So let's have a look at overlay. I said about contrast. So what happens if I paint with something dark? Well, turns out the image will become darker. If I paint with something light, well, it turns out the image will become brighter. And the way in which this image becomes brighter is directly linked to the other blend modes, which we just talked about before. Hopefully that makes sense. I've never opened the Photoshop manual. Is it within the Photoshop? You can. I think you can just have a look at the... just have a look on your internet, your favorite internet search engine, Bing, I don't know, and you will find the Photoshop manual over here. And I think Maddy is back. Hello, Maddy.
Hey, Tim, there's somebody fixing my Wi-Fi, not my Wi-Fi, the whole street's Wi-Fi up the road. And they must have cut the cord. So,
right, if you don't want to watch the stream, that's fine, Maddy, but don't blame it on the internet. And
I need to log in again. Oh,
no,
carry on, Tim.
You do that, and I will just quickly talk about blending modes for a moment again. This manual is great if you really want to get into the details and the nitty-gritty of how you can use the blend modes. What do they mean exactly? What's the math behind them? Like, oh yes, we can see, aha, screen looks at each channel's color information and multiplies the inverse of the blend and base colors. Like, okay, thanks, I guess. Doesn't really mean anything to me if I just look at the manual. So, like I said, this will be the only time which we look at the manual. So let's just quickly get that out of the way.
Are you the kind of guy that always reads all of the manual, Tim?
Yes.
I bet you are. Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes the manual is quite convoluted and you can't really... There are no pictures in it. I think it's great, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a practical example, these contrast blending modes are often great if you like to add some contrast, some highlights perhaps, some shadows to the image, like often used for dodging and burning. So for face retouching, if you want to add some highlights to the cheekbones, you can add some white or some black to add some contour. In this case, we can just perhaps undo this. And I don't know, we could add some shadows to the clouds, perhaps. So let's take black, reduce opacity, and make those clouds super dramatic. Like, wow, that's a dramatic sky. Like, way too much, but you know. And let's add some highlights to the mountains. Like, wow, let's reduce opacity. There we go. What a difference. All right. So, now I would like just to have a look around some of my... How am I going to put that? Oh no! You know what? Before we do that, before we continue, let's quickly go back to this image because there are still some things which are important, which we should talk about if we have this menu here. First of all, there are keyboard shortcuts, right? Almost all of those blend modes allow you to can be applied with a keyboard shortcut. In this case, it is Alt or Option, depending on Mac or Windows, Shift, and the letter. Luckily,
this is good.
Most of those letters correspond with the either the first or one of the letters in those blend modes, unlike some other languages, which for many reasons, for many years, I always wondered why some of the German ones like had an O for this. There's almost no O in this one. Why is it O? Well, turns out English is overlay. So if you're using the English version of Photoshop, you're in luck. Or like U for hue, you know, makes sense, or X for exclusion. Much different in other languages. Or D for dodge, B for burn, K for darken, M for multiply. Usually you can just get by if you know the most important ones like multiply, dodge, burn, screen, vivid light perhaps, an overlay. That's about it. You won't really need more than that. Okay.
Cool.
Important for that is if you apply them and you have one of the painting tools selected, like the brush, it will actually apply the mode to the brush instead of the layer. So if I go like, I don't know, Option Shift G, you would see it says mode lighten up here and not in the layer. That's important. So if you want to use those shortcuts and you have a painting tool selected, just hit V for the move tool, and then you can say Option Shift G, and now we have lighten in here. That's a side note. And another side note, some of those blend modes are not compatible with all bit depths in Photoshop. Mainly 32 bits, that's an issue, so only those are compatible. If you switch to 32 bits, which you can do if you don't know, by mode, 32 bits, you will notice that some blend modes, like color burn and linear burn, they are not available. Like they're grayed out, you can't use them. And all the contrast modes also become unavailable. So if you ever work with 30-bit images, then you should know that some blend modes are not available. And I've added that like the 32 icon.
There's a lot of shortcuts there. And I think we should also share, Tim, right, that this is just the start of the streams that we're going to be covering with blend mode. So you'll be revisiting some of these shortcuts again. You'll hear about these again over the next few weeks. So there's going to be a few more sessions led by Tim.
That's right. It's not going to be all about blend modes, just
not just blend.
But
these shortcuts.
I will be actually back soon with more tips and tricks all around the Adobe apps. But for today, it's going to be all about blend modes. All right. So I think it would be a great idea, because now we have a basic understanding of which blend mode does what. Like, okay, these make things lighter, they make things darker, they are for contrast. I would like to talk about the ones down here for just a moment, because as you mentioned at the beginning of the stream, what if you want to change some colors of a dress, perhaps? I don't know.
Nice. Yes, I'm definitely here for this.
So why don't we do that? I will just check if I happen to have a demo image, because I wasn't prepared to do this, but I think I do. And we will use, I don't know, how about this image? That looks great.
Perfect.
Koi fish. There we are. Let's say I want to change the color of this orange over here. How about that? Well, for this, we should know how these component blend modes down here work. Many of you know that you can split images in different channels. Usually, we talk about RGB, which is short for red, green, and blue. So we can have a look at those. Right, very nice. But what some people don't know is that there are different ways to split an image. One of them is in hue, saturation, and brightness, or HSB for short. And pretty much all of you know about this already, even if you don't know it yet, because if we have a look at the color picker, we see those exact three letters again, HSB. And usually people have clicked on the H, which means that we can pick the hue in this color strip, right? But we can also click on S for saturation, and we can see colors become more saturated. We can click on B for brightness, and we can see colors become more bright. So these three things, hue, saturation, and brightness, they are exactly what those blending modes down here will affect. Let's start with hue, since that's pretty much the easy one. I will create a new layer. I will change it to hue and pick a brush And how about, oh, I don't know, a green perhaps? Or blue?
Go for it. Greeny blue, turquoise.
Greeny blue. There we go. And let's just paint over the image. And immediately we will see we have changed the color.
Wow.
Or the hue, rather, actually. Right?
Yeah.
So before and after. And what's great about that is that this layer just looks like this. And if we increase opacity, we can paint even more, make it more vivid. There we are. Very nice. Now, the hue layer essentially changes this hue parameter, which we can also see at the top here. I added like a color picker. So you can pick pretty much any color around the rainbow and have some fun with that. So that's a hue adjustment layer for you. What about the others? Well, let's say we also want to adjust, I don't know, the saturation. Perhaps we have an image from Maddy and that's just way too saturated and we want to tone that down a bit. So let's pick a color that doesn't have too much saturation in it. Like, I don't know, this gray. This green gray. Now if I paint over it, it will become less saturated. If I pick a different color, perhaps this one, which is somewhat saturated, we can add some more into there. And if we pick something really saturated, like this green, like, oh, hang on, wrong blend mode. There we go. That's better. There we are. Now it's working. Now we can really saturate the whole image.
Yeah, that looks cool. That looks like a neon glowing fish.
Let's go back from it, or we can entirely desaturate by just painting with a gray color. That's it. Now it's working. Aha.
Okay.
Ah, that's better. Right? And this
Sandrine's on fire today. Very funny. Lots of funny comments coming from Sandrine in the chat today, making me smile. She says, this species has been renamed Carpus madicus. There you go, Tim.
Right, lovely. So this is saturation for you. So if you have a color in your image and you want to saturate it even more or take some saturation out, you can easily use a blend mode, a new layer, and set the blend mode to saturation. And now let's have a look at luminosity for just a moment, and we will actually use a different image for this, just because I can. And how about, oh, I don't know. Oh God, come on, Tim, pick something.
Do you want the person with the crown on, with the yellow background?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, wow. What an image. Oh, brilliant.
Let's say we want to change the color. Well, that's great. Sorry, luminosity. Sorry. And let's say we want to make the image brighter or darker. So people would usually just go here, say curves, right? Let's make that a bit bigger so we can see what's going on. And now we could make it darker or brighter. But watch what happens to the colors. If I go darker, suddenly they become much more saturated. Like we can really see some vibrant reds. And maybe we don't want that. Maybe we just want to make it darker or brighter. So let's set the blend mode of those curves to luminosity. So now this curves layer will only affect the brightness. So watch what's the yellow. It won't get saturated. It will just get darker. See that? So versus no blending mode. Way too saturated, not saturated.
Cool.
That's the difference. So if you just want to affect the brightness of an image, change the blend mode of your curves layer perhaps to luminosity. Great way to do it. And finally, you've noticed I've skipped one perhaps, and this is the color one. Color blend mode is just a combination of hue and saturation, which is great because sometimes you want to affect both. Like if I create a new color, green, I want to really change that blue, I can say, please change it to color and perhaps a bit of a brighter blue, green I mean. Okay, that's a bit too dark, perhaps. Of course, I can... Oop, hang on. Sorry, something's not right.
Don't worry, while you're fixing that, Tony's put in the chat, I had to pop out and I get back and Tim is using a picture of me without my beard.
Right. We can change the color. And one really important thing about this color blend mode is...
Yeah.
If I pick... perhaps we can just have a look at the yellow in the background. Brush. There we go. If I pick this color, which is pretty saturated, right?
Very green.
We get some saturation, but if I also pick a lighter green, which doesn't have too much color, we also get something lighter. And this wouldn't work. Hang on, color. There we go. This wouldn't work if we have hue as our adjustment layer, because hue is not concerned what the saturation of the blend layer is.
Okay.
Instead, we would use color. So before and after, before and after. That's just a slight difference. And that layer is really great, like blend mode is really great if you want to change the color of an object. Like, I don't know, those yellow rings, we don't want the yellow color. We could just also make them blue, perhaps. Change it to color.
Very cool.
And take a bit more time to mask them out, of course. You know, but that's how you could do it.
Tidy up the edges. But that's how to do it. So you literally just painted on.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
That's one way to do it.
Okay, cool.
All right. So now, since we only have about 13 minutes left, I would like to talk about some blend modes which lots of people don't really use. And there might be a good reason for that, but I want to hopefully show you two cool things, or three perhaps, even if we have the time, which you can use with the hard mix blend mode. And
I've never used that.
Exactly, and the dissolve blend mode.
Oh, Stuart said dissolve in the chat. So good call there, Tim.
Exactly. So why would you ever want to use those? Oh, and by the way, before I forget, I skipped those blend modes here, the inversion blend modes. They are really great if you want to align two images. Let's say you have a panorama and they have some overlap. You can use those blend modes to really find the difference. And once you have matched it up, they will become black. Or perhaps I can just show it to you. How about that? Why not just show it really quickly?
Why not?
So let's say we have this image.
Santa.
And I mean, it's not a panorama, but let's just say we have this on a separate layer. Right? And oh no, we have moved it, and now I want to align it again. Like, okay, yes, could be right, but that also looks right. So where is it exactly? Well, let's just pick one of these modes. Doesn't really matter which one; they all behave very, very similar. And now I can exactly match it up. And we can go in, and as soon as I got the perfect match, it should become completely black. There we are.
Very cool. And what was that one? Dissolve? No. Sorry.
It's difference. We can also use exclusion, and they all behave very similarly, but in this case, I use difference. So now I align those images. I know they are pixel perfect, so if I turn it off and on again, we should not see a difference, hopefully. And I think I didn't align it perfectly. Oh, I did. Okay. It was just...
Very good.
So that's why you can use the difference modes. If you want to ever see a difference, or perhaps, if you want to check if someone edited your image, so perhaps someone used, I don't know, the smudge tool or whatever, right? And just smudged the eyes up like this, whatever. Then you can, if you have the original image, you can just go to difference and you will immediately see, oh no, someone messed with my image.
Oh, see,
you can do some image forensics.
I mean, that does look scary, but I like the detective element.
They edited the image right here, officer. Okay.
Very cool.
Now, as promised, let's talk about hard mix and let's talk about dissolve. And why don't we start with hard mix?
Yeah.
And for this, I will just get one of my demo files. Don't be scared, it's just me. Hello.
Yay. And by the way, Angus has a really good name for this series, Tim. It should be Tim's Top Tips.
Tim Mystified.
You love a bit of alliteration. Well, it is Tim Mystified, isn't it? We do like Tim Mystified, but I do like Tim's Top Tips.
There we are. All right.
Not
Okay. So, how about I want to transform this, I mean, honestly, frankly, great image of myself. How about I want to transform this one into a more graphic style? And I thought to myself, you know, why not use halftones? And the reason why I want to use hard mix is because before the stream started, I went around and had a look on the internet to see what many people think about blend modes and how they're going to use them, because always good to know what people think on the internet. And I found this website, and they said it's one of the most obsolete and never used blend modes in Photoshop. If they had to make a list, hard mix would be at #1 spot. I thought to skip this blend mode altogether, but I decided to post it to her anyways. And they essentially say, like, yeah, you're never going to use it. Like, it just produces weird results and nobody in their right mind would ever use it. And I thought to myself, how dare you? How dare you insult my favorite blend mode, hard mix, right?
Okay.
No, I shall not have this.
Let's see how it goes.
So I shall show you right now why hard mix can be your favorite blend mode. So here we go. Obsolete my butt. Right, let's create a new layer and let's fill that with neutral gray or 50% gray. Then I will go to my filter gallery and we will create some lines, which are right here. Oh, hang on. First, default colors. Always remember to do that. Filter gallery. Sketch, halftone patterns.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this particular blend mode, couldn't you actually do a very similar thing in the neural filters that are on Photoshop with this image?
No.
Ooh, okay.
And I will show you why.
Interesting. All right.
We have some lines. I don't look at it too close because you will go blind. And
Yeah.
I'll just transform that up. You will notice why in a moment. And then I will say distort. Polar coordinates. Okay. We have a spiral.
This is like one of those things where you see, how stressed am I? And then you look at it and the lines move and then you realize that you're really stressed. Did anyone else do that? Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're going to blur that. So, blur, Gaussian blur. My Photoshop is slightly freaked out. There we go. That's much better. Now we have those gradual fades from white to dark. And let's now set the blend mode to hard mix. Okay, interesting, very interesting. Let's also blur the background image. And let's actually desaturate the image. There we go. And watch what we did now. We actually managed to create this very interesting halftone pattern. So the image now, if we zoom in, it's actually made up of just thick and thin lines. But if we zoom out, suddenly a face appears.
That's cool.
Right? And if we don't like those very sharp edges, we can just, remember, special blend modes. Reduce fill a bit to about 95, and suddenly we have our super duper cool. And I just noticed that there's a light part. Let's just create. Ooh, hello.
This is very cool. Very cool. I've seen TikToks like this, where you see people drawing these lines and then they zoom out and there's a picture, and this is how they've done it. They didn't draw all of those lines, did they?
Nope. And of course, if you change the size of the spiral, you can You can have it with finer detail or even less detail. How about this? Oh,
Very cool, Tim. I'm
right?
impressed.
And all that just with the, according to that person, most obsolete blend mode ever. And of course, if you want to go further, you can go and say, ooh, how about a gradient map? How about like a nice red to yellow? Let's reverse that. And suddenly we have our very own graphic style and super custom image. How about that?
That is so cool. And what blend mode was this? Hard
mix.
Hard mix.
And if we want to adjust the background image, we can go in and say, oh yes, curves, and make it darker or brighter. We can sort of adjust the exposure of those, or the balance of those lines. Very nice. All right, so that's one way to use hard mix, and I'm just going to show you another one because I like that one way too much.
That's so cool. I just wrote all of that down. I'm making so many notes today. I'm all over this.
We're going to do
Very
some
cool.
stippling.
Ooh.
So I have this illustration right here. I will just fill that in with a white layer, so we have a background. And now I want to add some stippling to that one. So first of all, let's make it a smart object. And now we have to make some adjustments to the image. And for that, I just have to look to the side because I happen to have a list, because I can't remember that one all the time. First of all, let's desaturate. So image, adjustment, hue saturation, desaturate. Then we're going to blur the image slightly, just to get rid of some of the fine details. Yes, please. Blur that. Very good. Then I will make it much brighter. And don't worry if you can't follow all the steps. You will see at the end what the result is. And if you want to replicate that, you can always watch the replay. So make it much brighter like this. And then we will add some noise. Add noise, 100%. And now here comes the tricky part. Have you ever noticed that we have some icons over here, these slider icons at the side, next to these smart filters, right? Have you ever noticed that you actually can click on them and it will open a new window where you can change the blending mode of the individual filter?
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Okay, so let's set that one to, you guessed it, hard mix. And immediately we can see, if we have a look at the preview, we get some points in the image. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right? That's good. Now we just need to make them a bit bigger. So filter, other, and here's the tricky part, minimum. There we go, preserve roundness. And suddenly looks very much like stippling. And you know what?
Oh, yeah.
Even better, if we disable hue saturation, we get color.
Reverb Mike says it's a bit spotty. Completely agree.
And suddenly we have created all those fun stipple effects. And the best thing about that is we can always go in and change the contrast, have a bit more perhaps.
Oh, that's cool.
Fewer points.
Annika says tiny ants. That is exactly what went through my mind, Annika. And Sanjane says you need to change your fax machine, Tim.
Or we can increase the size a bit if we want to have bigger points. And imagine how much time I would have had to spend just creating those. And, you know, we can always go in and say, okay, we want to distort that a bit. And we say ripple perhaps, just to make it not that perfect, like this. Look a bit more random. And then we can go ahead and we can add a paper texture, perhaps, on top of that.
That's cool. I like that.
And then we can play with the blend modes. Oops, sorry. So perhaps one of the lighten ones, you know, like lighten. And suddenly we get this paper texture, which we can, as you know, reduce the opacity.
I love it.
And in that way, we can really create our very own image. And remember, this image is still editable. So if I wanted to suddenly, I don't know, change the color of the yellow, as we know, just add a new layer.
Yeah.
Pick a nice color, but how about this? Red, change the blend mode to hue. Or if we want to mimic the saturation, we can also change it to color. And perhaps a bit more, just so. Oh, hang on. There we go. And now save it. And suddenly it's also red over here.
Oh.
So very
You've covered
cool.
lots of cool things today, Tim.
All with hard mix.
Really good. It is. I think the best one out of everything that I wrote down today is hard mix. That is the best one that I want to give a go. I want to have a go. Everybody in the chat today, it's been lovely seeing all of your comments coming in. If any of you fancy, if any of you are off work sick, if you are at home, try these out. If these are blend modes that you've not used before or that you don't use regularly, share what you do, because we love to see it every time. And Tim, what do you think you're going to cover in your next, Tim Mystified session?
Well, we'll see. If you want to see anything in particular, I was thinking perhaps some After Effects. Who knows? Or maybe some Audition. Maybe. Who knows?
Definitely Audition, please. I've got lots of questions for you on Audition. And we're at 1:00, everybody. So, I just want to say thank you so much, for all of the comments. And on Wednesday, it's Tony and I think we're in Character Animator. Is that right, Tim?
It says so in the stream part. Yeah.
I think so. That's going to be a fun session. So I'm looking forward to getting back with Mr. Tony Harmer for our stream on Wednesday. Tim, is there anything last that you'd like to share with us before we drop?
I mean, really quickly, we don't have any time, so I would just at least mention it, and perhaps we will cover that in a different stream. But I wanted to at least mention the Dissolve blend mode, which just sets the transparency of the image based on the transparency of the blend layer, but with some randomness applied. So we can see here, this is just a black layer at 50% opacity, but you get this wonderfully random pattern. And little known fact for everyone playing along at home, if you create also the same layer, so black layer, 50% opacity, you will get the exact same pattern. It looks random, but it very much isn't. We always have this exact same pattern. I know sometimes I even like to look around and see if I can spot some similarities. So for example, we have some, hang on. There we are. The red eyes of doom, as I call them.
Uh-oh.
The incomplete target over here. We have my favorite, the Y, the lonely dot, and the checkerboard up here. And if you're playing along at home, you will find those exact same patterns. Exactly the same. It's always the same pattern.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Just FYI. And this one, if you want to look further into that, which we won't do today, you can just have a look on your favorite search engine and look for dithering. That's what this is for. You can create all those wonderful effects and have a look at that. There we are. This is what it is used for, can be used for dithering. What it is and what exactly you can do with it, we don't have the time today, but perhaps doing a later one.
That is so funny. We use dithering in a different way here. Like normally you see a dithering about. If you're not doing much, you're dithering about. How funny.
Oh dear, the camera's frozen again on my end. Hopefully.
Oh no, I'm still here. But yeah, I can see I've frozen. Oh, rubbish. They're probably doing the work. Thanks everyone for joining. And we'll see you Wednesday. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Tim. You are a legend as always. Tim Mystified at his best.
All right.
Thanks,
have a wonderful rest of the day. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Hi everybody. Bonus clip for those of you who are staying around for the credits. Maddy is already gone, but at least I wanted to tell you about one final thing, because I've totally forgot that, which is I will share the blending mode document, which we had on screen just before. I can see if I can show that to you again. This one. I will share this one with you in the Discord. So if you are on the UK Adobe Live Discord, this image will find its way into the links channel. So hopefully, if you ever forget something, you can always reference this one. And one more thing. Yeah, that's right. End credits. There we go. For those of you who are paying attention. So you'll find this one in your Discord. And the link for the Discord, of course, is as always below the screen. And hopefully I will see you there. And one final thing, if you ever want to actually understand blend modes in a whole different way, I very much encourage you just to have a play around with some gradients. Just going to show you like this. You create one horizontal and one vertical. And then you can play around with all the different blend modes. And you will immediately see, for example, that darken is the exact opposite of lighten. See that? Darken, lighten, opposites. And so on and so forth. You can see how all the different blend modes behave, what they do, and you will see why some of them are opposites. Right? You can see darken up here, lighten in the bottom half. Isn't that nice? Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks for sticking around. And for those of you who have already turned off, you missed this. All right. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you tomorrow. Not on Wednesday, tomorrow. Bye-bye. For real now.